The arena was huge, built from black stone, and it shook with the sound of thousands of alien voices. The crowd filled every seat, their eyes glowing, their teeth shining, their hands waving weapons in the air. They were waiting for blood. They wanted to see death. Torches burned on the high walls, throwing shadows that danced like monsters across the floor. In the middle of the arena, a long line of prisoners stood with chains on their arms and legs. They were from many different species: green-skinned warriors, four-armed beasts, insect-like soldiers, and weak traders who cried for mercy. All of them trembled. All of them knew this was their final day. Above them, on a high throne of metal, sat the alien commander. His armor was dark red. His eyes were sharp like knives, and his voice was louder than thunder. He raised one claw, and the noise of the crowd doubled. He shouted, "Today we end the lives of traitors and thieves. Today we show the galaxy our power." The prisoners lowered their heads. Some prayed to their gods. Some wept quietly. Some shouted for help, but no help came. At the end of the line, standing apart from the rest, was one figure that looked different from all others. It was a human. He stood straight while the others bent in fear. His clothes were torn, his body was covered with dirt, yet his eyes were calm. He did not cry. He did not beg. He did not even speak. He only watched, as if he was waiting for something. The alien guards noticed him and laughed. One said, "This one thinks he is strong. Look at his silence. Soon he will scream like the others." The crowd laughed with them, cruel and hungry. The executioner, a tall alien with a blade bigger than his own body, stepped forward. His weapon glowed with red fire. He walked toward the first prisoner in the line. The crowd cheered, stomping their feet, demanding blood. The first prisoner cried, "Please, spare me." But the blade came down fast. A flash of red light, a scream, and then silence. The crowd roared. The second prisoner tried to run, but chains pulled him back. The blade fell again. Another scream. Another cheer. The executions continued one by one, slow and merciless. The human did not move. His eyes stayed calm. He watched everything, but his face showed no fear. He was the only one who seemed untouched by the terror around him. In the front row of the crowd, sitting among the aliens, was a small child. She was not like the others. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and innocent. She could not be older than 7 years in human age. She held her mother's hand, but her gaze stayed fixed on the human. When another prisoner fell to the ground, the little girl suddenly pulled her hand free. She stood up, pointing her finger straight at the human. Her voice, clear and sharp, broke through the noise of the crowd. "That one," she cried. "That one is different." For a moment, the arena fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to the human. The commander frowned, his claws tightening on the arms of his throne. The mother tried to pull the girl back, whispering, "Sit down, child, do not speak." But the girl shook her head, her finger still pointing. The executioner stopped. His blade hovered above the next prisoner, but he did not strike. Everyone was looking at the human now. The human slowly lifted his head. His calm eyes met the commander's angry stare. He did not speak. He did not move. But the silence grew heavier, as if the air itself had become thick with tension. The crowd began to whisper. "What is she saying? Why that one? What makes him different?" The commander growled, his voice echoing through the stone walls. "Child, sit down. He is nothing, just another prisoner." But the little girl shook her head again. Her voice trembled, yet she spoke with certainty. "No, he is not nothing, he is human." The word carried through the arena like a wave. Human. The crowd repeated, uncertain, confused, even afraid. Some aliens laughed nervously. Others whispered to each other. A few looked shocked, their eyes wide with memory. The commander leaned forward, his claws tapping the metal throne. "Human, impossible. They are gone. They are only a story." But the girl's finger did not waver. Her innocent eyes stared only at the calm prisoner, who now stood like a shadow of a forgotten past. The crowd shifted. Some began to chant for the execution to continue, but others hesitated. The tension grew thicker. The guards exchanged worried glances. The executioner's hands shook on the blade, and in the center of it all, the human finally smiled. Just a small, quiet smile. The girl's voice, though small, carried to every corner of the arena. "Do not kill him. He is dangerous. He is human." The execution ground, once filled with cheers and fire, now held only silence and fear. The arena was no longer alive with noise. Where there had been cheering, there was silence. Where there had been laughter, there was fear. Thousands of alien eyes now stared not at the executioner, not at the commander, but at the little girl who dared to speak. Her finger still pointed at the human. Her small voice, soft yet filled with strange certainty, hung in the air like a warning. That one is different. That one is human. The commander rose from his throne. His armor clinked as he moved, and his shadow stretched long across the arena floor. He looked down at the girl, his red eyes glowing with anger. "Child, you do not know what you speak. Sit down or I will have you removed." But the girl did not sit. She stood tall as her little body could stand, and repeated the words with more strength. "He is human." A ripple went through the crowd. Aliens began whispering to each other. Some laughed nervously, brushing the idea away like dust. Others shook their heads, fear already crawling into their minds. Humans. That word had not been spoken in this arena for centuries. To many, it was only a story told to frighten children. To others, it was a memory, one they wished never to recall. The executioner lowered his blade. His forearms trembled. He looked at the commander, waiting for orders. The next prisoner in line collapsed to his knees, begging to be spared, but nobody listened. All eyes were on the calm figure at the end of the line. The human still stood silent. He had not said a word. He had not moved. But now, under the weight of so many stares, he lifted his head. His calm eyes met the commander's gaze again, and for the first time the alien leader looked unsure. The little girl's mother pulled at her arm, trying to drag her back into the seat. "Quiet, child. You will bring punishment upon us." But the girl pulled free. Her voice grew stronger, like she was speaking a truth even she did not fully understand. "He is dangerous. He is not like the others. He is human," the commander growled, his voice shaking the stone walls. "Human? Lies. They were destroyed long ago. Their world burned, their armies crushed. Do you think this weak creature is one of them?" He pointed his claw at the prisoner. "Look at him, dirty, broken, chained like all the others. He is nothing." But his words did not calm the crowd. If anything, they made the whispers louder. From the far seats, an old alien stood. His skin was gray, his body bent with age, but his voice carried like wind through dry leaves. "I remember the stories," he said. "I remember the wars. They said humans could not be broken. They said humans fought even when hope was gone." The crowd gasped. More whispers spread. Some nodded in agreement. Some shook in fear. The commander slammed his claw against his throne. Sparks flew. "Stories. Nothing more." But the little girl shouted back, her small voice cutting through the noise. "Stories are born from truth." The arena shook with tension. The executioner stepped back, his blade still burning but his eyes full of doubt. The guards shifted uneasily, gripping their weapons but unsure if they wanted to move closer to the human. The other prisoners, who had been ready to die only moments ago, now looked at the man with wide eyes. Some saw hope in him. Some saw salvation. Others simply felt something they could not explain. A strange power in his silence, a strength that did not need to be spoken. The commander's rage grew. He pointed at the girl. "Remove her at once." Two guards rushed forward into the crowd, but before they could reach her, the girl's mother threw herself in front of them. "Please, she is only a child," she begged. The guards hesitated. They looked at the commander, waiting for his next order, and in that moment of hesitation, the human finally moved. He did not break his chains. He did not strike the guards. He simply took one step forward. The sound of his foot touching the stone floor echoed like thunder in the silent arena. Every prisoner, every guard, every alien in the seats froze. The human lifted his head fully now, his calm eyes sweeping across the crowd. His voice, steady and low, carried to every corner of the arena. "You should listen to her." The words were simple, but the effect was powerful. The guard stopped. The executioner's blade lowered. The whispers of the crowd grew into fearful murmurs. The little girl's eyes shone as if she had been waiting for him to speak. She whispered again, though now it sounded more like a prophecy than a warning. "He is human," the commander snarled, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. "Chain him tighter. Do not let him speak again." But it was too late. The seed of fear had already been planted in the hearts of everyone who heard him. The human had spoken only a few words, yet the balance of the arena had shifted. No longer was he just another prisoner. No longer was he invisible. He had become the center of everything, hope for the desperate, fear for the powerful, and a mystery that refused to be ignored. The executions had stopped. The crowd no longer cried for blood. They waited now, unsure, curious, afraid. And at the center of it all stood the human, silent again, but more dangerous than ever. The human's voice had been soft, but its echo still clung to the stone walls like smoke. The crowd, once thirsty for blood, had gone quiet, caught between fear and curiosity. Nobody knew why a single step and a few words from him felt heavier than the screams of the dying prisoners before. The commander sat frozen on his throne, his claws digging into the arms of the metal seat. He tried to look strong, but his eyes betrayed him. They flickered with doubt. The little girl still pointed at the man, her voice no longer trembling but steady with truth. "He is human," she whispered again, though the whole arena had already felt it. The other prisoners leaned forward in their chains. They had expected the man to break, to cry, to fall like the rest. Yet he stood calm, his eyes unshaken, his silence stronger than armor. Hope, that dangerous flame, began to spark inside them. One guard, tall and covered in sharp scales, snarled to cover his own fear. He stepped toward the human, his spear raised. "Do not mock us, creature. Speak again and I will silence you." The human turned his head slowly, his eyes locking onto the guard. They were not angry eyes, nor fearful ones. They were calm, too calm. The guard froze mid-step. His body trembled. The spear slipped slightly in his hands. It was not the strength of the human's body that stopped him. It was the weight of his gaze. The calmness inside those eyes was like a storm hidden behind quiet clouds. The crowd gasped. "Why does he not fear?" One voice cried. "Why does he not beg?" asked another. The executioner, still holding his burning blade, stared at the human. His forearms lowered, and for the first time in years his hands shook. He remembered the old tales told in soldier camps, stories of humans who fought until their last breath, who smiled even in death, who made enemies doubt themselves with nothing but a steady gaze. The commander slammed a claw down to regain control. His voice boomed. "Enough of this. He is a trickster. He is weak flesh like all the rest." But even as he spoke, his words felt hollow. The arena had changed. The power he once held was slipping away, and he could feel it. The human finally broke the silence. His voice was calm, almost gentle, yet it carried through the air. "You are afraid," he said simply. The words struck like a blade. The commander's eyes widened in fury. "Afraid? I fear nothing." But the crowd knew. They saw the commander's claws dig deeper into the throne. They saw the twitch in his jaw. They heard the lie. The little girl's eyes glowed with something strange, something more than innocence. "He sees what others cannot," she whispered. "That is why he is dangerous." The guards shifted uneasily. One of them spat, trying to regain courage. "Why do you look at us like that?" he demanded, his voice shaking. The human tilted his head, his eyes soft, almost pitying. "Because I have already seen how this ends." The words sent chills through the arena. Nobody knew what he meant. Some thought it was madness. Others thought it was prophecy. The prisoners whispered among themselves. Hope grew stronger now. One alien prisoner with cracked horns whispered, "He knows something. He knows we are not finished." Another, with broken wings, whispered back, "Maybe he is the key." The commander roared, trying to drown the whispers. "Guards, strike him down!" But the guards hesitated. None wanted to be the first to step into those calm eyes. None wanted to test the truth of his words. The human did not move, did not fight, did not resist. He only stood there, his calm gaze spreading fear like a plague. Finally, one desperate guard lunged, his spear aimed at the human's chest. The crowd gasped. The prisoners screamed. But the human did nothing. He only looked at the guard as the spear came closer, and then the guard stopped. His hands froze just before striking. His whole body shook as though an invisible weight pressed down on him. He dropped the spear, falling to his knees. I cannot," the guard stammered, his voice breaking. "I cannot do it." The crowd erupted into chaos. Some shouted for the human to be killed. Others whispered in awe. The little girl's eyes sparkled with triumph. The commander slammed his claws again, his voice rising in desperation. "He is no more than flesh and bone. He is nothing." But the truth was clear. The human had not lifted a finger. Yet already the strongest soldiers hesitated. Already the arena had changed. The calm eyes of the human were no longer just eyes. They were mirrors, showing everyone their own fear, their own weakness. And in that silence the human spoke once more, his words slow and steady. "Chains do not hold me. Fear holds you. The words spread through the crowd like fire. Prisoners lifted their heads. The guards backed away. The commander shook with rage. The little girl, still pointing, declared with the strength of 100 voices, "He is human, and humans do not bow." The arena that had once been a place of death was now a battlefield of silence, fear, and growing hope. And at the center of it all stood the human, his calm eyes unbroken, his presence more powerful than any blade. The arena trembled, but not from weapons or fire. It trembled from silence. Thousands of aliens sat in their seats, but no one shouted, no one cheered. Their eyes were fixed on the human who stood unshaken, his chains heavy but his gaze calm. The commander growled from his throne. He wanted to crush the moment, to silence the whispers, but the crowd no longer looked at him with trust. They looked at him with doubt. And worse, some looked at him with fear. The little girl's voice still echoed in their minds. He is human. The word carried weight, heavy like a stone thrown into still water. The ripple spread, pulling old memories from the depths of time. From the back rows of the arena, an old alien with gray scales stood on trembling legs. His voice was rough with age, but it carried across the silence. "I have seen eyes like his before." The crowd turned toward him. Whispers rose. The old alien lifted one claw to point at the human. "I was a child when the wars burned across the stars. My people spoke of humans. They said humans fought until even the stars trembled. They said humans were not many, but they could not be broken." The commander slammed a claw against the throne. Sparks leapt into the air. "Lies! Those are nothing but ghost stories." But the old alien shook his head. His voice grew louder, stronger, as if speaking gave him new life. "No, I remember. I remember soldiers returning broken, whispering the same word in fear. Human." The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths, others nodded in agreement. Another alien, younger but scarred from old battles, stood. His voice cracked as he spoke. "My grandfather told me. He told me about the Battle of the Crimson Belt. He said a single human ship destroyed 10 of ours. 10 with fire and cunning." The arena filled with murmurs. The commander roared to silence them, but his voice was no longer the loudest. Fear had already begun to spread like smoke. The human stood still, silent, but his eyes swept the crowd, calm and unshaken. His presence alone added weight to the old stories. One of the guards dropped his spear. "This cannot be," he muttered. Humans were erased. Their planet burned. How could one stand here now? The little girl stepped forward, her voice clear. "Because legends never die, and some truths cannot be destroyed." The commander pointed at her, his voice sharp with rage. "Enough, she fills your heads with nonsense." But the crowd was no longer fully his. Whispers turned into stories, stories turned into memory. The arena became not a place of execution, but a place of remembering. An insect-like alien with wings folded tight shouted from the stands. "My kind tells of humans too. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they were stubborn. They refused to fall. Even when broken, they rose again." The words spread quickly like dry leaves catching fire. Every corner of the arena filled with voices. Tales of human defiance. Tales of human victories. Tales of fear that commanders had tried to erase. The prisoners lifted their heads higher now. Hope burned in their eyes. The human had not moved, had not fought. But already chains felt weaker around their wrists. Already the air felt lighter in their lungs. The commander roared, his anger spilling like fire. "Do not believe these weak voices. I will show you the truth." He pointed at the executioner. "End him now. End this lie." The executioner raised his blade. His arms trembled. He looked at the human, at those calm eyes that did not fear death. For a long moment he could not move. The crowd held its breath. Then from deep within the alien's memory, something surfaced. His father's words, spoken long ago in hushed tones. "If you ever see a human, do not fight. Run." His arm shook harder. Sweat dripped from his forehead. And then, to the shock of all, the executioner dropped his blade. It hit the ground with a heavy clang. The crowd gasped. The commander leapt to his feet in fury. "Coward!" he screamed, but the executioner fell to his knees, eyes wide with fear. "I cannot," he whispered. "I will not strike him." The whispers of the crowd became a roar of confusion. Some shouted for blood. Others shouted to free the human. The arena was breaking apart, the commander's control slipping away piece by piece. The human finally spoke, his voice calm but strong. "You remember the truth now. You remember what your leaders tried to bury. Humans are not weak. Humans endure. His words cut through the chaos like lightning. The little girl's eyes shone with light, and she declared again, her voice stronger than ever. He is human, and you cannot kill him. The commander's face twisted with rage, but behind his anger was fear. Real fear. His claws trembled. For the first time in years, he did not feel like the master of the arena. He felt like prey, and the crowd, once united under his rule, now looked divided. Some feared the human, others hoped in him, but none could look away. The legend of humans, buried in dust and silence, had risen again, and it stood there in chains, calm-eyed, waiting for what came next. The arena no longer felt like a place of order. The commander's voice was drowned by shouts, by whispers, by fear and hope clashing in the air. The blade of the executioner lay on the ground, its fire dimming. The guards no longer looked brave. The crowd no longer looked entertained. And at the center of it all stood the human, calm as stone. The commander roared, his claws tearing into the arms of his throne. "Enough! Kill him now, or I will see you all executed in his place." His voice was thunder, but thunder could not silence a storm once it began. One guard, trembling, stepped forward with his spear. His heart pounded, but he forced himself closer. "If we do not end this, Commander, the crowd will turn against us," he said, trying to sound strong. The commander snapped back. "Then strike him, fool. Strike him now." The guard raised his spear, sweat dripping from his scaled face. He pointed the sharp tip at the human's chest. The crowd held its breath. Prisoners shut their eyes, certain the moment had come. But the human did not flinch. He did not step back. His eyes remained calm, steady as the stars. And then he spoke. Just 4 words, but they froze the guard where he stood. "You don't want this." The guard's hands trembled. His knees buckled. The spear tip wavered. He tried to push forward, but something in the human's voice, something heavy, something undeniable, made his body betray him. He dropped the spear. It clattered on the stone floor, loud as thunder in the silence. The crowd gasped. The commander's face twisted in rage. "Cowards! All of you!" he screamed. The human stepped forward. The chains rattled with his movement, but they did not stop him. He looked at the commander, his voice calm yet sharper than any blade. "You think chains hold me, but fear holds you." The crowd murmured, the words sinking deep. The commander slammed his fist down again. "Seize him! All of you, now!" 3 guards rushed forward this time, their weapons drawn. Their faces were full of fear, but they forced their legs to move. They lunged at the human, ready to overwhelm him. The prisoners cried out, the little girl screamed, but the human only lifted his head higher. As the guards came close, he moved. He did not need weapons. He did not need speed. He only needed will. With a sharp pull, the chains around his wrists snapped. Metal links flew through the air, clanging like broken bells. Gasps filled the arena. The guards froze mid-step. Their weapons shook in their hands. The human stood taller now, free, his broken chains falling to the ground. One of the guards, panicked, swung his blade. The human caught it with his bare hand. Metal screeched against flesh, but the human did not bleed. With a twist of his wrist, he shattered the blade into pieces. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some screamed in fear. Some cheered with wild hope. The legend was no longer rumor. It stood alive before them. The commander's voice broke with fury. "Kill him! Kill him now!" But the guards hesitated. They stepped back instead of forward. Their courage melted away under the human's calm stare. The human did not attack them. He did not strike. He simply raised his broken chains high for all to see. "You see now," he said. "You see what they tried to bury. Humans endure. Humans rise." The prisoners cheered, their voices stronger now, no longer weak. The crowd split into 2, half shouting for the commander, half shouting for the human. The arena shook with division. The little girl ran forward, slipping past guards who no longer had the heart to stop her. She stood at the human's side, her small hand clutching his. Her voice, though small, rang clear. "You cannot kill him. He is human, and he will not bow." The sight of the child standing beside him only fueled the chaos. The commander's claws scraped deep into the throne as he shouted in rage. "This is rebellion! This is treason!" But his words fell weak against the storm rising in the arena. The human lowered his eyes to the child, his voice softer now, almost gentle. "You should not be here." But the girl shook her head, her eyes bright with faith. "This is where I belong." The crowd roared louder, prisoners pulled at their chains with renewed strength. Guards backed away in fear. The commander, for the first time, looked small on his throne. The human raised his voice one last time, calm but powerful, reaching every ear in the arena. This ends today, not with fear, not with chains, but with truth. The arena exploded into chaos. The prisoners shouted, the guards stumbled. The crowd broke apart between terror and hope, and in the middle of it all, the human stood free, his broken chains at his feet, his calm eyes brighter than fire. The first act of defiance had begun. The arena was no longer a place of execution. It had become a storm. Shouts filled the air, clashing like waves against stone. Half the crowd cried for blood, their voices sharp with fear. The other half shouted for freedom, their voices rising with hope. The balance of power trembled on the edge of collapse. The human stood in the center, the broken chains at his feet, his hands free, his eyes calm. The little girl stood beside him, her small fingers wrapped around his. She looked fragile, yet her voice carried stronger than ever. You cannot kill him. He is human. The prisoners, still chained, pulled with new strength. Metal links groaned under the pressure of hope. They no longer bowed their heads. They no longer wept. They shouted for freedom, their cries rising like thunder. The guards hesitated. Their orders were clear: kill the human, silence the rebellion, restore order. But their hearts trembled. None wanted to face those calm eyes. None wanted to test the strength of broken chains. The commander rose from his throne, his claws raised, his armor glowing under the torchlight. His voice ripped through the chaos. Silence. You will obey me. But the crowd no longer listened. His voice had once been law, but now it sounded weaker than the roar of thousands. An old alien in the seats shouted, "We will not obey." Not while he stands. Others joined, their voices spreading like wildfire. Free the human. Free the prisoners. The commander's face twisted in rage. Fools, do you not understand? He will destroy you all. But the people no longer feared his claws. They feared the calmness of the man in chains more. And some no longer feared at all. They felt hope. The executioner, still kneeling where he had dropped his blade, whispered to himself, I cannot fight him. I will not fight him. The legends, they were true. The commander pointed at him with fury. Coward! Traitor! His claws shook as he shouted at the guards. Seize the human. Take the girl if you must, but kill him now. The guards stepped forward, but their eyes betrayed their fear. Some moved reluctantly. Some stopped after only a few steps. The crowd hurled stones and scraps of metal at them, blocking their path. The human lifted his hand, not in violence, but in command. His voice was calm, yet it silenced even the noise of the crowd. No more blood. Not today. The guards froze. The crowd quieted, caught in the strange weight of his words. One of the prisoners, a winged alien with chains cutting into his feathers, shouted, If he stands, we stand too. He pulled so hard his chains snapped against the stone post. The sound cracked like lightning. Another prisoner followed, tearing free with raw strength born of hope. Then another. And another. The chains that had bound them for so long began to break. The commander's eyes widened. No, this cannot be. He slammed his claws against the throne. Stop them. Stop this madness! But it was too late. The arena, once ruled by fear, had turned. The little girl raised her hand high, her voice clear. Stand with him. Stand with the human. The crowd erupted into cheers. The prisoners broke their chains with roars of freedom. The guards backed away, their courage shattered. The executioner bowed his head low, refusing to move against the tide. The commander screamed above the noise. You are fools! Do you think this man will save you? He is only flesh! But the people shouted back as one voice, He is human. The words thundered across the arena, shaking the very stone walls. The human stood tall, silent, his calm eyes steady. He did not raise his fists. He did not need to. His presence alone carried the weight of 1,000 warriors. The commander knew then. Control was gone. The arena no longer belonged to him. It belonged to the crowd. It belonged to the prisoners. It belonged to the human. The guards dropped their weapons, some running, some joining the crowd. The commander's voice was lost under the roar of rebellion. The little girl, still at the human's side, looked up at him with shining eyes. They believe now, she whispered. They believe because of you. The human looked down at her, his expression calm but unreadable. "Belief is dangerous," he said softly. "But belief is hope," she replied. The human turned his gaze back to the throne. The commander still stood, claws raised, eyes blazing with hatred. Their eyes locked across the chaos, one filled with rage, the other filled with calm. The human spoke again, his voice carrying like a blade through the storm. "Your time is over." The crowd erupted again, louder than before, their chants shaking the arena. "Human! Human! Human!" The commander's claws twitched. His rule, his power, his control, all of it slipped through his fingers like sand. The turn of the crowd was complete. The execution ground had become a place of rebellion, and at the center of it all the human stood, his calm eyes burning brighter than any fire. The arena was fire and thunder. Shouts, cries, and chants filled the air, crashing into each other like storms. Prisoners broke their chains. Guards dropped their weapons. The crowd split between fear and hope. The commander, once master of all, now stood on his throne, his claws trembling with rage, and in the middle of the chaos stood the human, calm, silent, eyes steady as the stars. The little girl held his hand tightly. Her small voice rose above the storm. "He will not bow. He is human." The chant spread. The crowd shouted with her, louder, fiercer. "Human! Human! Human!" The sound shook the stone walls, rattled the torches, and even made the guards step back. The commander roared, his voice cracking under pressure. "You fools! You worship a ghost. He is nothing. He is only flesh." But his words no longer carried power. The people no longer believed him. They looked at the calm man in chains, and they saw something greater than flesh. The commander leapt from his throne, his red armor glowing, his claws sharp enough to cut stone. He landed on the arena floor with a crash that cracked the ground. Dust rose, firelight danced across his massive frame. His voice tore through the arena. "If none of you will kill him, then I will." The crowd gasped. The executioner covered his face. The prisoners braced themselves. The girl held tighter to the human's hand, but the human did not move. The commander charged, claws raised high, his roar shaking the air. He moved with the speed of a beast, the strength of a monster. His shadow swallowed the human whole, and then the human moved. He did not dodge. He did not retreat. He stepped forward. His chains shattered completely, breaking apart like glass under pressure. The sound echoed across the arena. The broken links flew into the air and scattered like sparks. The commander struck with all his strength, claws slashing down. But the human raised his hand, bare and unarmed. He caught the strike in his palm. The entire arena went silent. The commander's eyes widened. His claws, strong enough to pierce steel, did not break the human's flesh. The human's grip was unshaken, his face calm, his eyes burning with quiet fire. "You cannot win," the human said softly. The commander snarled, trying to push harder, but the human did not move an inch. It was as if the ground itself stood with him. The alien growled, "You are only one man." The human's voice was steady. "One is enough." With a sudden twist, he threw the commander across the arena. The giant alien crashed into the stone wall, breaking it apart. Dust and rubble fell around him. The crowd erupted, screams of awe mixing with cheers of hope. The commander rose, his armor cracked, his pride shattered. He roared in fury and charged again. But the human was ready. This time he moved faster than the crowd could follow. One strike, one blow, and the commander fell to his knees. Blood dripped from his mouth. His claws shook. His eyes burned with hatred and fear. The human stood above him, calm as ever. He did not raise a weapon. He did not need one. His voice carried like thunder and light at once. "Your chains are broken. Your fear is over." The prisoners roared in victory. The crowd erupted, chanting again. "Human! Human! Human!" The little girl stepped forward, standing beside him, her eyes shining. "He is not just flesh," she cried. "He is hope." The commander tried to rise again, but his strength was gone. His claws scraped the stone, weak and powerless. The crowd turned against him, their voices louder than his roars. The guards dropped to their knees, no longer loyal. The executioner bowed his head. Even the old alien in the stands wept, whispering, "The legends live again." The human stood tall, not as a prisoner, not as a victim, but as something greater. He had not needed violence to win. His strength was not only in his hands, but in his calmness, his will, his refusal to bow. The little girl looked up at him, her small voice gentle now. What happens next? The human looked across the arena, at the broken chains, at the freed prisoners, at the crowd that now shouted his name. His eyes stayed calm, but deep inside them burned the fire of endless wars, of survival, of unbroken spirit. What happens next, he said quietly, is freedom. The crowd roared, louder than ever before. The arena that had once been a place of death now shook with life. The commander, broken and defeated, was dragged away by his own people. The throne stood empty. The chains lay shattered, and at the center of it all was the human, calm, unbroken, and stronger than any weapon. The little girl smiled through her tears. She had been right all along. He was different. He was dangerous. He was human, and the galaxy would never forget it.